Motor outdoors, here we come. Motor outdoors, here we come.
All right. You guys ready to talk boundary waters?
Oh, yeah.
Get started.
Well, I want to hear fucking boundary waters. Oh, sorry. I want to hear fracking boundary waters.
You're gonna have to get closer. I can barely read it.
All right. Fire this shit up, dude.
All right. Welcome to the Voyageur Outdoors podcast. I'm Mac.
I'm Barry.
I'm Ron.
I'm AJ.
If any of you guys looking on YouTube, one of our microphones took a poop recording. Poop. Thanks to Kim Wilkes, we got our list of words here, and so AJ and I are gonna be sharing one. But we got like Barry said, he's here. He's on his way from South Dakota up to the Boundary Waters to work summer again. So we're going to cover a lot of Boundary Waters talk, a beginner talk, just things you need to know about when you go up there. A lot of stuff has changed in the last year with permits and with all the fires they have. So we'll just we'll go from there. Hey Barry.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. How are you?
I'm good. It's fun to have you back in town.
Yeah, I'm glad to be back in town for a little bit. Glad I could stop by and do another podcast with you.
So you're working with a different outfitter now than you were before.
No, it's the same outfitter, but it's under new ownership.
Okay. So what's the name of the outfitter?
So the outfitter is Voyageur North Outfitters in Ely, Minnesota.
Okay. We'll just start with how does someone start going to the Boundary Waters? What do you have to look up? Do you have to go through an outfitter?
It definitely helps if your first time you go through an outfitter. A lot of what kind of how people go about it is they'll come through us and get complete outfitting. So, we take care of all the camping gear. We take care of permits for them. We talk routes with them to find out what they want to do on their trip, whether it's, do you want to see waterfalls, pictographs? Would you rather get into a spot with real good fishing? Is portaging a problem for you guys? And we all know the park so well up there to where we can put you in the ideal spot for your trip as long as a permit's open for that.
Yeah. Hold on one sec. It's messing up the mixer.
Dang it. Dadgummit.
I almost spilled my beer again.
If I move it this way, is it better?
No. So you guys can completely outfit anybody.
Yeah, we can get you everything you need to where you pretty much show up with the clothes on your back and you're good to go. I mean, there's a handful of things that, you should bring, but pretty much any of that stuff we have for sale at the shop anyway. So
Yeah.
you can pretty much just show up. We can drive you out, pick you up at the end of your trip.
And you can give them food, sleeping bag, tent,
We can go the whole 10 yards on this.
And is that something that you would suggest somebody do on the first time?
On your first time, I would definitely suggest it just because we really have got this down to pretty much a science on what you need and everything. And I go through gear, and a couple other guys, we go through your gear when you first show up. So we'll take you through everything, the sleeping bags, the thermarest. We'll show you how the stove works. We take you through all of your gear and make sure that you are comfortable with it and that you don't have any questions about it.
Do you have a question?
I have a question.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you guys go as far as even actually physically guiding them?
We have before. It's not too often we get a guide because our boss will sit down with you and go through your whole map with you. So he'll, tell you, hey, this is a good campsite. Try to get this one. Don't camp here. This campsite is not good. And, fish here, walleye spots are here, lake trout over here, northern here.
This is not when I've never done it, but when I've thought about going up there, the big dreams that I have, it's always, I know you have to get a permit, and that was always just, that probably is why some people are scared to do it. It's I got to plan on all these things on my own. I had no idea that this was even an option. All right, I'm just going to talk to you guys, and get all that stuff laid out, and have you go through the gear too. That's huge.
And that's a lot about going to the Boundary Waters is you always hear about all the gear you have to buy beforehand, and if you don't like it, then you just wasted a good $1,000, depending on what you buy. If you go in like a backpacker and you get the Eno hammock, or you get a tent and all that stuff, the cast iron, your food, coolers, you know, it's a lot of money that you're investing into it. So if you don't like doing it, or if it's just a shot, it's a good idea. Like, I didn't know that they had that until he was telling me about it a while ago.
So I'm outdoorsy. I'm not the most outdoorsy guy, and hearing that there's an option like that definitely makes me want to do something like that more. Like, I don't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the camping type of guy, really, especially to go out and, like, you know, really go camping like that. It's just never been something I've thought about doing.
Yeah, wilderness camping compared to car camping.
Right, yes.
And I think it's something that everybody should try. It being in like the Midwest, and we can take a step back for people that don't know what was it, the BWCA is. What is the Boundary Waters?
So the Boundary Waters was a set aside land by the government to preserve the wilderness out there, and it's just over 1 million acres, and it's, for the most part, it is all canoe only. There's a couple of hiking trails through there, and there are some motorboat routes you can go on, but those are pretty limited. On the east side, you're limited to basically Trout Lake, Snowbank Lake, and then up into Basswood. And that's the only places you can go with a motorboat. And even then, you're still restricted to only a 25 horsepower limit. So, I mean, you're not going to see any big boats or a pontoon out there or anything. And if you don't want to see motorboats, don't go to the motorboat zones, you know.
So you're telling me the old 5.5 Johnson I got sitting at my parents' house is perfect?
Yeah, it'll get you across the lake eventually, but yeah,
Just take
the
it.
canoers might beat you. But
So how many years have you been doing it?
so I started doing this my second year of college, so that would have been 2015. I started doing working at the outfitter.
Okay.
And then I took last summer off because of family issues that I had to go and help out with, but I'm glad to be back.
Done.
Well, you were in South Dakota shooting stuff.
I was doing that as well.
Or shooting snow geese.
And shooting snow geese.
That's you do it all. Like
I try to.
I was when Ron was coming up here tonight, he's like, I'm like, oh, we're gonna do a podcast tonight with AJ and Barry. He's like, who's Barry? I said, he's a mountain man. He's the man that we all thought we'd want to be for outdoors. He can do it.
Right.
He's the guy that'll go out there and camp in grizzly country and be like, oh, they're fine. What did you say last time? Just pee yourself?
Oh,
You're like, oh yeah, just, if you ever see a black bear, just pee yourself. And I was like, well, does that work? He goes, well, do you need something covered in pee?
I'm guessing if a black was running at me, I would have tried.
A little natural.
Yeah, exactly.
Black bears are nothing. They're just giant raccoons, basically.
That's what everyone says.
Yeah.
But you're also the same guy that told me you were going out wolf hunting. You were just gonna lean up against a tree with a black powder pistol.
I thought about doing that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, tell us a little bit about the outfitter. I mean, besides the fact that they have gear, and why is this outfitter you like working for? What makes them different than just all the other outfitters up there?
We are the biggest canoe outfitter out there. We definitely have the most boats or canoes, I should say, I guess. We always call them boats, but that's what they are. I have customers correct me all the time when I show them their boat and they go, no, it's a canoe. I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's still a boat.
It floats on water.
Yeah.
Yep. But so we're the biggest ones, and we definitely have the most inventory out of any gear. So when other outfitters kind of overbook and they run out of gear, they come to us to rent gear from us, whether it's a canoe or any type of gear, satellite phones, GPS spot trackers. We offer all of that. So,
Have you ever had a problem with someone getting lost and having to go find them?
we have had people get lost out there before. And normally, if they are able to call us on sat phone or something, we can normally pinpoint it by looking at the map long enough and knowing what area they're in.
You just go in tracking them like a deer. Well, I think I'd go here. I go for the shade.
The best is when they call us and they say, yeah, we're next to the big rock and the tree. Like, oh, okay. Like, sure. I know right where you're at.
I'm picturing Barry and his coworkers just kind of standing around the table looking at a map going, yeah, they're probably there. And Barry going, yeah, I got it. And just leaving.
No,
Come back.
it's not like, I mean, I've never had to go out and help people. Other people have, like, one of my good buddies that works with me there, Billy, he had to go help out this, Girl Scout troop one time. Because one of the Girl Scouts and her father just couldn't do it after, a couple hours. They're like, this isn't for us. And they had to turn around and it was raining and stuff. And, they got lost on their way out. So Bill went up to go find them on the, number chain. So they're on like 1 or 2. And, they eventually found them sitting at the Quishwe Lodge, which is another resort right there. So they eventually found their way back.
I feel bad for this guy, honestly, because could you imagine going out in the woods with a bunch of little girls and the whole time they're just like, you're lost?
Well, that's not even the funny part of the story. So Bill's giving them a ride back to the outfitter, and the little girl goes, "Hey, where's your map?" And Bill kind of goes, "Oh, I don't have one with me. Like I know the lake pretty well." And she looks at her dad and I guess just said, "Well, he didn't even need a map. You had one that got us lost."
I'm gonna have to step out.
Oh, geez, everyone's stepping out. I guess it's just Barry and I. That's okay.
But yeah, going back on our packages too, we have
Yeah.
multiple different packages. So like we got a canoe and food package. We have a canoe and gear package in case you want to do your own food or your own gear. We also have our complete outfitting, and I believe we got rid of one of the packages this year, so we got 3 packages now. We got the ultralight package. We have our Kevlar package, which has a little bit nicer gear, newer stuff, a little bit lighter, stuff that hasn't been patched as often.
So, okay.
And then our third one is probably our best package. That's our fishing package, which that comes with a depth finder, which it kind of just looks like a little flashlight and just tells you the depth you're in.
Yeah.
And it comes with all your bait and, rod holders for the canoe and just more fishing accessories, anchor bags, so you can anchor down. But an anchor bag is just a mesh bag that you fill with rocks and tie to your canoe and toss it over. And then, you just dump the rocks out and you don't have to carry the weight of an anchor anymore. So
That's a smart idea. I never thought of that.
yeah.
So let's take a little step back. So I say, like, I'll say for me, for an example, I've gone up there one time, and Scott took me. We went through Siegel Outfitters. We rented the two Kevlar canoes. I got the gear, and they boated us out to an island. Then we went and picked our campsite.
Yeah.
So now say I'm gonna go up there without Scott. What do I need to do? Like, I have majority of the gear. I got like the water purifier, so you can take water out of the lake and drink it. And where do I start? Like, everyone talks about permits.
Yeah.
Everything you need to do with permits. What do I need to do? Like, take me through the steps of start to finish on
On the permit.
on the permitting and the check-in times, like the small details that maybe you don't think of,
Yeah.
but it's like things you need to know.
Yeah. So we'll start with the permitting, since that's probably the first part of your trip, and that's what we always tell people. Start with your permit.
Yeah.
Because you got to get your permit, because there's only so many permits per day per entry point.
Okay.
Which they did reduce them down this year because of campsite availability and stuff, because people aren't pushing quite as far as what they used to, I believe, is why. So campsites kind of fill up, and that's the main reason why they limit campsites.
Okay.
So there's only so many campsites, and you have to camp at a designated campsite.
And so you said there's only designated entry points. How many entry points are there?
So off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
I mean, they're all over. I mean,
Yeah,
the
they're
Bergies
all
waters,
over.
if anyone can look at a map, it's not a small area. It's
over 1 million acres.
Yeah, it's a huge area. And even with all of those entry points, they still limit the amount of people, right?
Yes.
Is there different zoning of the boundary waters?
No, there's overall, I would say no. There is there's kind of if you look at a Boundary Waters map, there's a little chunk of it that's kind of separate from the rest of it, which would be like your Trout Lake, Crab Lake permits, and then your Indian Sioux South permit and your Big Lake permit.
Is there a reason for that?
I'm not really sure why they broke that chunk off. I mean, there is a road that kind of goes right in between the two, which is the Echo Trail, and there's a lot of entry points off the Echo Trail. So I don't know if that road had something to do with it back when they were drying out the Boundary Waters, or kind of why they choose to make that part separate.
Barry keeps looking over to my right here.
Give us map.
And he actually donated this net map. And what's kind of cool about the map here is, I'm sure it's hard for people to see on the camera, but is they're waterproof.
Yep,
The
they are.
maps are waterproof.
They're printed on Tyvek paper, so they are waterproof. You can draw on them and everything. We always do to mark spots and stuff to see out there, points of interest.
So before we get into more of the, like we talked a lot about the entry points.
Mhm.
So let's get back to the permits.
Yep.
They limited, you said that there's less permits this year than there has been in the past because people aren't going in farther into the Boundary Waters and things like that. Do you know on hand how many permits they're allowing this year and like how much less it is than normal?
And not all entry points got restricted. There's only a handful that did. Like Mudrow, I think did, and I'm pretty sure Lake One did. Other than that, I'm not real sure. Like, I mean, I've kind of been out of the game for about a year and a half with the Boundary Waters. So just not working last year, not being around this fall and this winter, I didn't hear as much about the permitting. I just kind of know bits and pieces about what's changed.
Yep.
So I don't want to give anyone the wrong information, but I believe those two entry points got restricted. And I'm sure there's some on the Gunflint side. And I'm sure there's probably other ones on the Ely side as well that I just didn't hear about.
And where did the fires go through last year? They were kind of, was that the Gunflint side?
I believe the Gunflint side did have some. I know they did have a fire up on Crooked. That was the one that I was really watching because that's one area I would really want to get to, is up on Crooked Lake.
And how far is that? It's so hard to talk about it because there's so many things about the Boundary Waters, like with portages, and then they don't use miles. What do they use for?
They use rods.
Rods.
Which one rod is 16.5 feet. And the reason they use rods is because that's what the Voyagers measured everything in, because that was the length of their canoe.
Oh, I didn't
So
know.
one
that.
rod is 16.5 feet, which was a Voyager canoe, and that's how they measured everything back then during the fur trade and when the Voyagers were up there.
That's pretty cool. I just like.
And then, once you get familiar with rods, you know how far everything is when you look at the map. And okay, this one's 90 rods. That's roughly a quarter mile. 320 is a mile.
320 rods is a mile.
Yes.
I'm gonna have to write that down whenever I go.
Forget it.
Yeah. But so I got my permit. I'm gonna go to what's the one like Scott always talks about it. Is it
Snowbank?
Snowbank.
Yep.
Snowbank Lake. I got my permit. I'm gonna go up there for 3 days. Now, what do I do? And when I get this permit, I have to go through an outfitter, right? Or how?
Yes, I believe they did change that during the whole COVID with everything going on. They were allowing people to print off their permits themselves, but the Forest Service also realized that people are not watching the videos that they need to watch about the leave no trace type of videos. So, they had complaints about, and they caught people cutting trees down and, leaving garbage, burning garbage, doing all sorts of stuff that you're not supposed to do that's covered in these videos. So they got rid of that. So you do have to go through either the Forest Service station or an outfitter to pick your permit up now.
That's good though.
Okay.
Which is good because then, we can make sure that these people sit down and watch the videos and we can, go through it with them and see if they have questions on anything.
And it's funny when you watch the video, because I've always heard about, you have to watch the video and it reminds you of like an old sex ed video you
They
watched?
updated the video, I think,
Oh, did
2
they?
or 3 years
Oh,
ago.
because it was like, it seemed like it was like an old, like 1970s video with like an old Forest Service guy, and he's going through all the things on what you need to do, and you know, like people like us, we kind of already practice that anyway.
Yep.
So, but the fire thing is what really like, it's like, I didn't realize they were so strict on the fires up there, and that's because they had a fire in the, I think it was the late 90s, early 2000s, somewhere around that time.
Yeah, are you talking about Pagami Creek?
That must
The
have been,
big one?
yeah.
Yeah.
And that was over by where we were, all the trees were still burnt, and this was 20 years, 15 years later. And then they preach about, you know, the fires. Well, then all of a sudden now we had the drought last year, and so, like, we had smoke down here all summer because of the fires up there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty crazy in how, like,
Just the impact it has.
well, like a lightning strike had started, but it very easily, you know, that big fire out west where the guy, what was it, a gender reveal party, and it burnt like all freaking California and
Oh, yeah.
and all that shit.
Yeah, yeah.
Crap. I mean,
I think it's,
I think
it's
California's a tinderbox
Oh,
waiting to
yeah,
burn,
yeah.
but
yeah, that's a whole different discussion. But it's interesting though, like you kind of think about one of the things that was mentioned kind of first is like everyone, you had mentioned the people from the Midwest should go and experience the Boundary Waters. I think the fires is a good example of why. You know, we had a lot of smoke stuff that we were dealing with down here because of the fires, the Boundary Waters. Like just see how that impacts, like it's just in your backyard. Head up there, take a look, see what you're supposed, how best to, you know, participate and support that environment.
and I think it takes people back to their roots. Like,
Well, yeah, there's the whole that piece.
well, yeah, but like that's when I went up there, that's kind of what we didn't really, I mean, we roughed it, but we didn't really rough it. We were eating steaks and stuff on the cast iron skillet. But to get out of your element with, you're away from, you don't have cell phone service, you're away from everything, and you have to find stuff to do. You're constantly busy, you know, collecting firewood.
Mhm.
You know,
Collecting that thing.
yeah, collecting. You can't cut the trees down. So you're trying to find good firewood to burn. And I'm like the type of guy that, like, I like to keep the fire going all the time. This is nice to have when you're up there. And then like along that part, then you're trying to, someone's always on water, dude, because you're drinking a lot of water if you go up there and it's hot. You want to stay hydrated, you're canoeing around, and it's just super cool, like, to get out of your element and get back to your roots. Then you come back and you're just like, you don't need 90% of the stuff you have that you
Right.
would think that you could live without.
Right.
It's pretty cool. And Barry lives like that on a day-to-day basis.
pretty much.
What else we got here? We're like flying through, but I know, like, we're all like
begin to
yeah,
scratch the surface.
we're all super excited because we haven't seen each other in a while.
It's all surface stuff, yeah.
And there's been like a lot of stuff going on in here. Like, you're leaving, AJ's leaving, the dog is being a pain in the butt. Like, there's just so much commotion.
Yeah,
Everyone's
yeah.
just trying to get settled in now. Barry hadn't had a beer before the podcast, so he could get it like jitters out. I mean, it still does get nerve wracking when you're talking.
Oh, a little bit.
And
About
now-
Boundary Waters, I'm normally pretty uncomfortable after doing so many sport shows.
Oh yeah, that's right. So yeah, talk.
Sports shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So our outfit, we do a number of sport shows. This year I helped out with the Fargo Sport Show and then the Sioux Falls Sport Show as well.
Okay.
So I sat there at the booth and people walk by me and avoid eye contact because they don't want to talk to me.
I just want to get your free stuff.
So a lot of that. And then we got a lot of older guys that go, oh, I'm not canoeing anymore, but I was up there in the 60s. Okay, cool. Like, do you remember what lake you're on? Not a clue.
It's the wet one.
Or they ask me, do you know Bill Rahm or Cliff Wold? And I'm like, I know of them. Or are they not up there anymore? They died a while ago. they were old guys back then when you knew them.
Been quite a few years since the 60s.
Yeah.
Here's like a legit question. Can you hunt in the Boundary Waters?
Yes, you can.
Like, you can
What's the
hunt
process
deer?
for that?
Yeah, it's got its own separate deer zone even.
So, do you hunt it? Have you ever hunted it?
I know I have not hunted in the Boundary Waters. Not deer at least. I have gotten a grouse in the Boundary Waters before, out on right off the Portage Trail, which I actually killed it with a rock.
That's it. Was like an at-lateral kind of a thing.
Well, I kind of like putted this rock at it, and it was flying through the air, and somehow I hit the damn thing.
Wow.
Uh,
Because I reference it all the time with the podcast, but there's a podcast that when I first started listening to it, it's by Mark Kenyon. He wrote a book called like That Backcountry, which is a really good book. I don't read books. I listen to them like when I'm in the truck when I'm doing stuff or on road trips. And on his podcast, he had a trip. He's from Michigan that he drove up there and he went whitetail hunting with his bow.
yeah.
And that seems like a modern Midwest, like roughing it, like you know how guys go in the mountains and they hike way back in the mountains 10 miles or wherever. They hunt elk and mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think like the Minnesota Midwest thing is for us, is to go canoe however far. And then like there's so much boundary water area that you don't even go to. Because you set up camp.
Yeah.
And you're by the water, and you spend 90% of your time by the water. You might walk back in the woods, but I mean, it's so thick that you're afraid of getting lost. You always hear about it, but if you can go back there with a tree stand and try to stock up on a whitetail, I'm sure there's a pretty heavy deer population up there.
Yeah, and one fun fact about the whitetails up there, it's the only migrating herd in North America. The whitetail deer migrate up there.
What? Yeah,
They
Yeah.
come down like,
From the boundary waters, and they come closer to town during the winters.
oh, so they travel out of the boundary waters and out like to Ely
Yeah.
because of just the snow?
Yeah,
or-
just because we get so much snow up there, so it's hard for them to move around. So they kind of make their way more towards the roads and, you know, more easy areas for them to get through.
If I could make a comparison, they're like city geese.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, and you can still camp in the boundary. It's not like the boundary waters has a season from, you know, April or Memorial Weekend to first time it snows. Like, there's some people that will try to live out there all year round.
Yeah.
And they have like
Really?
the cool yurts that they have set up. I know on the podcast had been almost a year ago. We had Badass Ross on here. He went up there and did a solo camping trip, him and his dog in the wintertime with snowshoes, went across the lake. He had a tent and set up a fire and went ice fishing and all that. And then he also does a trip with his buddies where they rent a yurt and it's got a wood stove in it. And I can't remember what outfitter he said he went through, but he said they have like a big toboggan behind the snowmobile. And they take all your gear there and then you just snowshoe in, but then you have to take all your gear out because obviously it's
Right.
food and things. But I'm like, that would be super cool. And he said this year it's pretty big. Like there's 10 beds in it.
Yeah, so that would be just outside of the boundary waters.
that is
There's
outside.
nothing like that inside the boundary waters, and you cannot snowmobile in the boundary waters. The pretty much the only way to get around there during the winter is either hiking, snowshoeing, cross country skiing, or dog sledding.
Dog sledding would be kind of rad.
It's a lot of fun.
There is a place up in Ely, isn't there, where you can like rent dog sleds? Like there's a company that
Oh, there's multiple.
like you just go, they have all their dogs on the sled and you hop on the back and they take you on the trails through the woods, and
Yeah,
that would be
it's a lot of fun. I've done it, and it's a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
So
that would be
I have a
fun
question on
shit.
the dog sled piece, just some of the wintertime in the underwater. So there's a race that takes place across the northern part of Minnesota. I don't think what it's called right now, but they do, I think they do dogs, they do biking, dog sledding. What it's called. Are there any sanctioned races that go through boundary waters that you're aware of?
Not that go through the boundary waters that I'm aware of. There are ones that go through Ely.
Okay.
I know there's a big one that goes through Ely, and I cannot remember what it's called.
Okay.
Max over here Googling it.
Oh yeah, you got to.
There-
I'm interested to know what the name
It's
of
a,
it
huge,
is.
it's a huge one. It's a cup, and it's not. I was just curious if it goes to the boundary water. There's a big one that they like bike in the wintertime. It's a
Yeah, they use fat
Insane.
bikes and bikes.
yeah, yep. It's an insane race.
I couldn't imagine doing something like that.
The only thing that I could find on Google was the John Bergies dog sled race, and it's 400 miles from the North Shore of Lake Superior to northeast northeastern Minnesota. It's the longest dog sled race in the 48 states.
The Bergies.
Bergies, sorry.
I'm
Sorry.
No, I was just reading.
Yeah,
Well, anyway,
sorry, John Bergies,
Yeah,
not
but it's a former qualifier for the Iditarod.
Oh,
Iditarod's the big one.
yeah.
Yeah,
No,
that's
not,
the big
not a
one.
former. It is a qualifier. It says it right there. Yeah.
Well, that's not the one I'm thinking of, but I was just curious if there's any sanctioned races. You know, like, I know, just a side note, like, you know, trail running and all that kind of stuff's a big deal, especially along the North Shore. If that was allowed or if you're aware of anything happening in the Boundary Waters area.
I know there's hiking trails through there, and unfortunately, a lot of the hiking trails have they don't get maintained very well
Right on.
because you can't bring chainsaws and everything else in, so everything's got to be done by hand tools out there. So when we get a bad windstorm and we get a lot of blowdown, it takes a long time for those trails to clear out again. Which there are organizations that go out there and clear those trails, and it's pretty much all volunteer work, I believe. So like the Powwow Trail is a big one that they really work on quite a bit.
Okay.
They're still that strict that even in a windstorm, they won't let like the Forest Service come in there with chainsaws to clear stuff. Like it's still all hand. Like
Yeah.
that seems like unreal for how strict they are.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to preserve the beauty that is northern Minnesota and has been for.
Which I believe the Forest Service, they can go in with chainsaws, but they maintain the forages. They're not too concerned on these hiking trails because they're not nearly as popular as these forages that need to be maintained.
So this is like a legit question. Is it because of the gas in the chainsaw?
I don't know, and that's another thing that's kind of just it's real weird because like so let's say you want to go up on an ice fishing trip,
Yeah.
you have to bring a hand auger.
Even like, and that's where I was going with is even like Steel makes electric chainsaws, and Strike Master and all these companies make electric augers.
Yeah, nope, you cannot use them in the boundary waters.
You still
Cannot
can't.
use a gas, cannot use propane, cannot use battery powered. It has to be hand powered.
See, and the battery power is the one that kind of throws me too.
Yeah, because you can bring your Vexlar with you.
But you can't bring an electric auger.
You cannot bring an electric auger. You can bring your big buddy with you, or your stove to cook on, which also takes propane, but you can't use a propane auger.
And hold on.
Sorry.
And no, that's okay. But and with like, the big thing now is jet boils.
Yeah.
They're kerosene, right?
Yeah.
I believe they're kerosene. You can use those. Like everyone brings them up to the
Right, that's
boundary
like
waters
noise
for
pollution.
because I think it take 20 something seconds or whatever to boil a cup of water for your mountain house.
Yeah,
And like they can bring that stuff in there.
yeah.
And is that stuff that you use, jet boils and stuff like that? Like what do you guys use at the outfitter?
So we use a mixture of propane stoves and mostly we use isobutane stoves.
I don't know what that is.
What is isobutane?
Isobutane, I don't really know.
It's a mixture of gases.
Yeah, it's something that burns.
So it's like, is it like the little?
They just screw right onto the top of a canister,
Oh,
just like
like
a propane stove,
the
a single
aluminum
burner,
Yellow ones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
like a single burner propane stove. They just screw onto an isobutane instead, which isobutane's more efficient. So the canisters are normally a bit smaller than the big 1 pound propane tanks.
Well, I suppose you're probably worried about anybody bringing like 1 pound tanks out there, and you got the possibility of some guy going out there and ditching them.
Well, they do that ice fishing all over the place. Like that is a legit problem. But it blows my mind that like the whole auger and electric chainsaw, like
Might come into more of a noise pollution kind of deal. I mean, it seems silly, but that's like, what else? How else could you justify? Not that they have to. It's the Forest Service, but how else could you justify not having those augers or the electric chainsaws, but being allowed to bring the the stoves and the 1 pound cylinders are okay.
But you start talking.
Yeah, I don't think it's a noise pollution problem because I mean, you go out there in the winter, you're not seeing anyone.
Yeah,
You're the only
okay
one out
about
there.
Noise pollution. Well, and I'm thinking about it too. Like you get noise pollution. Like I work construction, so it's like you can't start until a certain time.
Right.
Noise ordinance, that's how I kind of think noise pollution. It's like, well, what the hell, what are you gonna bother out there? The
Yeah.
trees?
Yeah, no, but it could be
Yeah,
part of what keeps it like this true natural or true nature kind of a deal.
The peacefulness
Yeah.
of it actually
Yeah,
being
I'm not saying I agree with
nature.
it, but just
No,
trying to find a reason.
That makes sense.
It's just, it's weird, and I'm sure they have legit reasons for it, or maybe they haven't really came up with a new, this generation type, like, 'cause it's not like the stuff's been out for 10, 15 years. It's only been out the last couple of years, so maybe they haven't really investigated, like, okay, chainsaws, no. Just because of it's a chainsaw, you rough it, do it by hand. But you shouldn't be cutting trees down anyway, but for the Forest Service. And I could see them hopefully being a little more lenient on the auger situation. I don't know.
I don't see anything changing with that anytime.
Quite frankly, they could just be doing it because they can. They're like, yeah, no.
You gotta draw the
That's
line
just it.
somewhere.
They can.
Or where the highway, pal.
Yeah,
If you don't like it, well then go frick yourself.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, you gotta draw the line somewhere, so.
Tough luck, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know. It's cool that they really they crack down on this stuff, but for people that don't know this stuff, like I would be like, oh, they don't allow gas. I'm gonna bring my electric, and then all of a sudden, I mean the chainsaw could be because of the oil too, the bar oil.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, I'm not gonna ignore that. Barry did it himself in the face with the mic.
Yeah, I did.
I wasn't gonna ignore that. But no, I mean, you got all kinds of stuff dripping off motors. You never know. I mean, as much as I love that 5.5 Johnson that I've got, it leaks. And it's not pretty. And I feel a little bad every time I run it. But it's reliable and I love it.
Right.
But I mean, I get back on, the lake by my parents' house, I get back on mud, which is a no petroleum lake. And I love it out there. You get the peacefulness. I mean, nobody's out there whipping past you. You don't got to worry about anything like that. You get the quiet and the calm, the part that I kind of enjoy about, going out fishing or going out bass fishing. You're just going out, it's you and a pole and going for it. Yeah.
It's niche.
Crystal likes to play with his pole.
Yeah.
Mind your own business. I was gonna leave it alone.
Oh, I wasn't gonna let that go after I hit myself in the face with the bike.
I saw it.
So-
and I saw him do it, and I was like, I'm not gonna say anything, and I was like, okay.
Well, I looked at you and we both started laughing and I wasn't going to let it go.
All right, so I gotta ask. Now granted, I had to step away for a bit. So I don't know if I missed the story already, but usually there's always, especially your first time on the podcast, there's always we gotta have your first. So I would say, have you told the story about any of the times that you've been camping in the Bottom Waters yet?
This is my second time on the podcast.
Oh, that's good. Gosh darn it.
No,
Well,
that's fine.
Well,
because
gosh,
I was gonna
gosh
ask
dang
him.
it. Could you tell us about? So have you done your first? Have you told about your first time in the Bottom Waters yet?
I have not.
So, because I want to actually hear a little bit about like your first. I want to hear about your first time and why you decided to just you wanted to be a guide up there. Like you wanted to make this a kind of a career for yourself. Can you share that?
Yeah, so the first time I went out into the Boundary Waters, it was actually through class in college. It was canoe expedition was the class name of it, and pretty much everything was already planned out by the college and everything. We had to break into groups of no more than 9 people. So there was, I believe, 3 groups, and our teacher led a group, and then the second year or third year students were leading the other groups. And we all did the exact same route, so I mean, we saw each other, tried to stay away from each other as much as we could, and we went up to Fall Lake, did a big loop over to like Horse Lake, and back around to Basswood, and then came back and ended at Fall Lake again.
How many days were you out for?
We were out there for 5 days.
Okay. So what? I feel like I've listened to a few of these episodes of this podcast, and it's an all right podcast, but
Just a few of the
yeah,
guys.
just a few. But what happened on that trip or on your second trip? Like what moment did you have where you're like, I need to be here all the time? Like what was that moment for you?
I didn't really ever have that moment. It was always something I wanted to do. And once I did it, I still love it. Like, I like
he's
being
like, I'm gonna bite this.
Back in 1984, when Barry was born, he decided he was gonna be a mountain man. He just came out like that. That's fair.
I've always just wanted to be the guy out of all my friends to go out and do weird, crazy stuff.
He wanted to be the man, is what
What
he's
was
saying.
he wanted the tough one.
Yes, I wanted to be the tough one that can go out and sleep underneath a canoe, which I've done multiple times. And
Well, even your college curriculum that you did,
yeah,
that couldn't have hurt your interest in doing this stuff.
I know I learned a lot about doing all kinds of different stuff. Like I took a backpacking class. I learned that backpacking is terrible. It's just one giant portage. Like it's awful. I would much rather put all my stuff into a boat and paddle my butt around the lake, and then just walk to the next lake and then sit down and paddle again. I don't want to walk 15 miles in a day.
Well,
That's awful. Carrying a bunch of stuff on your back.
That's like 15,000 rods.
I don't know what that
yeah,
is.
hold on. I made a note. That's how many did he say? Because it's 320 rods is a mile.
Yeah.
So you missed that. Yeah, you
I
missed that.
stepped out.
Yeah.
I'll get it.
I got notes for you. So then what about the boundary waters? So there's so many things just in the United States, alone. I mean, I'm really going super large on that one. What about the boundary waters though? Keeps bringing you back.
A big part of it is just my coworkers that I work with at the outfitter. They're all the coworkers there. They're all good friends of mine. I mean, granted, there's a couple there that I didn't like throughout the years, but for the most part, for the most part, we got a good group of guys. And, these are the guys I hang out with year round, whether we're at work or at the bar, we're all hanging out with each other. So going to work makes it that much better when you get to go work with all your friends.
No, yeah.
And we all have the same interests. If we all have, if I have a day off with one of my coworkers, we're going fishing, we're going out and paddling, we're doing something outside.
Right on.
And all the people up there, they kind of think like me, so.
Right on.
Let's take a quick break. I need to
You need to take a break.
I need to take a break. I need to get a couple more refreshments, but I do have some questions to go on what you just said too.
Okay.
Because we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back.
That's good. Thanks for the break.
It's kind of nice doing them, just because otherwise there's a lot going on, and someone always has to go to the bathroom.
Well, it's good for my varicose veins. Like blood clots.
Yeah. But so to get back on what Ron was talking about, and knowing Barry, you've always been a super outdoors guy. I just want to cover this real quick before we move on to the boundary water some more. You've always been a very outdoors guy. I've heard stories like your family had a farm, east of here, that I think it was your dad grew up on, and
He grew up working it.
working it, and like your grandpa lives in South Dakota, so I can't tell you how many people that I know have said, oh yeah, Barry's grandpa used to pick him up as soon as he was big enough to hold a rifle, and they go out to South Dakota and you go walk the fields and go pheasant hunting, and you've always just been a very outdoors person. So it's not probably one thing that's kind of got you to the boundary waters. You just all of a sudden probably, I don't know, you can probably relate that it's just something outdoors. It's something different. Like you don't need a lot of things like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And
So on that note, tell us a fun.
Yeah.
What is one of your best memories you have then of that outdoors experience?
So basically, I started getting into the outdoors when I was 7. My grandpa called my mom and said, "Hey, will it be okay if I take Barry out fishing?" And my mom's like, "Yeah, go ahead."
So maybe it wasn't as soon as you could walk.
Yeah,
People are full of
I don't know, Barry. Could have been said.
shank bull crap.
I started to learn to walk while I was 7.
Yeah.
Good
true story.
So me and my grandpa, we went up fishing on Ottertail Lake, for 2 days. And, you know, when I say we went and fished Ottertail Lake, I mean, we were on the water by sunrise. We did not get back till sunset. My grandpa would be sitting there in the boat asking me, hey, you want to go in? I'm like, no. What are we going to do at the hotel? Like, let's keep fishing, you know? And that's how me and him have always been. Whenever we go out fishing or we go out hunting, we start at one shooting hour start or once the sun's up, and we go until sunset.
I think it's really cool. You know, it's that a lot of early memories. You know, I have memories too of like it's that really early opportunities to get out there. Usually it's from your grandparents, the ones usually taking you out, and it's that whole spend the entire day kind of a deal. Just being outside is really plants that seed. It's been talked about on the podcast before. That early exposure to getting out there.
Yep, and the funny thing is, so the first year we went, we stayed in a hotel. So my grandpa didn't know how much I was gonna like it, and figured there's other stuff we can do.
Right.
After the first year, we started staying at resorts.
Okay.
And you know, so we didn't have to take the boat in and out every day and do stuff like that. And he always tells me, almost every resort we go to, the people come up to him that own the resort and go, "How do you get that kid to stay out there so long?" And my grandpa loves telling me this. He's like, "I know, he makes me stay out there that long."
And that's kind of,
and I mean that he still gets questions on that. Even back when I was in college and we were doing it on, you know, fishing in Winnebagosh.
Mm-hmm.
The people are like, "Yeah, we were kind of worried about. We almost sent a search party out for you guys were gone so long." And it's like, oh no, that's how we do things. You know, we pack a cooler, we make sandwiches out on the boat, eat some chips, drink some beer, and fish.
That's actually pretty cool. I look, when I go fishing, I never want to come off because it's like in my head, like everyone always talks about like, oh, you know, one more cast. Well, if I'm not catching fish,
that's what my shirt says.
One more cast. This is actually Frank's shirt. But I like casting just because if I don't have a fish or, you know, it's always that probability that you're going to get something on that one cast. That's kind of like the way I am too, but that's a very good segue to a question I have for you and Ron. Ron being a dad of 3 kids, and they're kind of getting older now. What ages are they?
By end of May, they'll be 10, 8, and 6.
And with talking about boundary waters, is there things family like the easier for parents to take their kids up to boundary waters like routes?
Oh, absolutely. We can definitely hook you up on a better route where you're gonna have to do less foraging. Because I mean, depending how young the kids are, you know, if they're under 10, they're not gonna be carrying their weight. Well, you know, they're gonna have to carry most of their stuff. So you don't want to do a lot of foraging. Once they get a bit older, like 15, 16, maybe take a little bit more of a challenging trip after your first time, after you already introduced it to them. And maybe, okay, we're going to do a little bit more foraging. We're going to go a little bit deeper because now the kids can carry their own weight. You know, maybe they can carry a canoe at this point, or at least they can carry one of their packs with all of their stuff in it.
So, and it's funny that like you talking about like your grandpa and everything going on. Because like you listened to the last podcast and Seth had his mom on, and they used to go camping all the time. They used to go up to the North Shore, and they pretty much drove like the outdoors and the kids. Like that's why Seth is just a freak about being he could probably, you and him would be best friends.
Oh yeah.
And
you just don't know this.
But like it's cool that the Boundary Waters has something to offer that you don't have to be afraid that you have kids and that you can still take them up there to enjoy it.
Yep. So there's a number of different routes to take kids on. One real common one is the number chain because you can get through 4 lakes with very little foraging. And yep, I mean, the longest forages are like you walk across your yard, you're to the next lake.
Okay.
So
it's
real easy.
Numbers.
Yep, the number chain. So Lake 1, 2, 3, and 4 is what they're called, and referred to as the number chain. Entry point number 30.
And is there good, because a lot of people go up there for fishing. Is there good fishing in all these lakes?
I mean, the deeper you go, the better the fishing is going to be. I will say, one exception to that is normally the first lake or two normally does have pretty good fishing because so many people want to get back a little bit further, so they don't fish those first couple of lakes. So
Okay.
that can be really good, or the farther you go, the better it gets.
And what's the age group? Like you, like you said, you haven't been up there for like the last year, but is there an influx of, it seems like my generation, like in the late 20s, early 30s, the people I grew up, it seems like more and more people are doing more things outside and experiencing more. Are you seeing a big influx of like our generation up there?
I'm starting to see that more, especially since all the COVID happened
Okay.
and people couldn't take their normal trips. They couldn't go to Florida, they couldn't go to, on their normal vacation.
Yeah.
So they decided, hey, let's try the Boundary Waters out. That's right here in Minnesota. Let's go and try that. So that kind of helped bring more people up there, I believe. Because I mean, we were crazy busy through all the COVID years and all that because so many people wanted to get outside. They were stuck sick of being inside all the time.
And there's no close contact. You're out there by yourself for the most part, unless you're
just the group you're with.
Yeah.
It's kind of almost a positive that came out of the COVID thing is like almost a renaissance in just outdoors activities in general.
Yeah.
You think of all of the different ones that have really exploded in popularity here recently.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that even, so I do all the ordering for our bait shop because we have a bait shop connected to our outfitter as well. So I do all our tackle orders and all that. And I can tell you the first year COVID hit, it was so hard to just get a Lindy rig. Like it was that backed up and everything was on back order that we had.
Did you start making them yourself?
I mean, I tie my own.
Yeah.
But even to get the components for it were hard to get.
Wow.
And luckily I had listened to my tackle rep and he told me, hey, I think this is going to be a huge year for fishing. I think you guys should stock way up on your stuff. And luckily I did listen to him because we had people coming up saying, yeah, we couldn't find a Rapala anywhere. We went to Cabela's and they were sold out. We went to Shields, they were sold out. And then they came up to us and we had a huge wall of any Rapala you could want pretty much.
I feel like you guys talked about this in the podcast too. I can't remember if it was Seth, or it was Scott, was talking about just even permits during the COVID times were really tough to come by because everyone was.
Yeah, it goes back on the, people just want to get out of their houses. And it's, it's cool that you're talking about tackle. Cover it real quick. There is, I consider the Boundary Waters as like a backyard. Like you can catch nice fish. Like you can go up there and you can eat walleye every night if you're in the right spot. You can go lake trout fishing. You can do all these things up there. What's the type of tackle that people should consider getting?
So what most people use up there, they're using either jig heads with a leech or they're trolling Lindy rigs with a leech. That would be probably most of it. I mean, we get some people up there that want to catch bass, so they cast for bass with your plugs, like your Rapalas, your top waters, stuff like that, or whopper ploppers. But for the most part, it's all fishing with a leech, with a hook and bobber, jig, or trolling Lindy rigs.
And you can do that right out of your canoe. I remember the episode last year, Seth went off, Jim, a guy that's a very good listener to the podcast, and he brought his depth finder, and they were trolling for lake trout.
That's a lot of fun. I've done it.
They're going
it's
in
a
the canoe,
blast.
and they're going through the speeds and when they're getting them, and he brought all the gear that he needed.
Well, Seth is a huge lake truck guy, period.
Well, yeah, but he brought his buddy brought his depth finder, Jim brought the depth finder, and it was so cool because I never thought of that. Trolling, finding the right speed, and all of a sudden you get one and the guy keep going, oh, he's got one, and you're sitting in the middle, trolling for lake trout in a canoe. That seems so freaking sweet.
Yeah.
And like you said, Rapalas, you could still sit and get a rod holder and throw your line out and troll for northerns.
Yeah.
It's such a good fishery that people don't realize. And when I went up there, we didn't do a lot of fishing. I think Mariah, she had a lake trout on. And I got off right at shore because we didn't go out because I wasn't very comfortable with the canoeing. A quick story. So we went up there, and
Quick story. Kids' last words.
yeah, and like Ryan and I were in a canoe, and Scott and his wife Margaret in the canoe. And Scott's been up there, and I know how to run a canoe, so Mariah's in front. Well, she's paddling and I'm paddling, and I just told her, I was like, she's moving around a lot in the front. I'm like, just stop. Like, it's easier for me to do it, to control it when you just sit back, take pictures, do your thing, because you're not really helping a whole lot. So like I'm doing that, and then in front of us is Scott and Margaret, and Scott's in the back of the canoe, and I just see him like doing like really ruddering like hardcore. Well, his wife was in the front, and she was getting a whole paddle full of water, and every time
They got it figured out.
like she's dipping a shoulder into it, so like she leaned on one side of the canoe, and he's just kind of like oh, like back and forth, just trying to keep the weight distributed so they don't flip over in the middle of the lake. It was so funny because
They're a crew team.
Oh,
I know how it works.
they're like Olympic.
Yeah.
Like,
They got it squared away.
yeah, they knew what they were doing, and we're just sitting back there just chilling. I'm sweating like a pig. I'm just like, no, don't paddle, you're good, you're good.
Don't touch the water.
She's like, oh, okay, that's fine.
Was it Mariah or your kid you're yelling at?
Mariah. But no, it was a really fun trip. Like I said, we didn't do a lot. We went out in the canoe, and I'm not the most balanced person. So
You know what? Just to break off that for a second, there are a lot of different kinds of canoes out there.
okay.
Different models, different makes. So if someone planning a trip, if they are unfamiliar with that, just tell us how comfortable you are in a canoe. If you say you are not comfortable in a canoe, we're gonna get you a nice wide canoe, so you don't, it doesn't tip as much.
Well,
Yep, so that would be like a Winona Boundary Waters. That's a real wide canoe. It's a 17-footer. It's real wide, real sturdy. If you are really comfortable with the canoe, I would suggest more of like a Minnesota 2, which is also made by Winona. Those are 18.5 feet, but they're a lot narrower and they are a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Like that's normally what I'm taking if I'm paddling with one other guy, or if I'm paddling with two other guys. It'll be a Minnesota 3, which is just the 3-person version of that boat, to where you're going to be cutting through water. It's going to be a little bit more tippy, but you're going to be a lot faster.
We just had like a Kevlar. It was just a normal 2-person 16-foot canoe. So I don't know what that was and what they had at the outfitter that we went through.
But I think that illustrates a good point, though. I know we've been kind of sporadic in our conversation, but
Yeah.
you mentioned a few really good points about why it's a good idea to have a qualified outfitter for your first, second, third time, kind of going up there. Let's not forget, it's the wilderness. Like, it's the closest thing to that truly natural, kind of land. And having outfitters go through your gear, help ask those questions, because honestly, I would never have thought of asking that question. I would have grabbed a canoe off of, Facebook Marketplace, and gone up there and tried to make it work, and I probably screwed it up, and I would have yelled at people. It would have been miserable.
Yeah, it would have been stressful.
Yeah, oh, exactly. It would have been enjoyable at all. Going to an outfitter, like, you ask those questions, are you comfortable with canoe? How to paddle, and then, kind of diving those questions. Well, there's a reason I'm asking these questions, because if you're not, I can get you a wider canoe, less tippy, like all those pieces that I would have thought about. I'd like to consider myself I know what it is to be outdoors, but I wouldn't have thought of that. So it just, again, illustrates why it's a good idea. Go through an outfitter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but what a lot of people do is, they get full outfitting their first time coming out, and then they slowly buy their own gear over the years. They pick up their own sleeping bag, their own thermarest, their own tent, and then pretty soon all they're getting from us is just the canoe. Or, they buy the canoes, and then they just come through us and they buy their bait from us and they get their permits through us.
Right.
Because we open way earlier than the Forest Service. We open at 5 a.m. and we're open until 10 p.m.
Wow.
at Voyageur North. So, we got a pretty long business day there to stop in, get your bait, get your permits, and get ready to go.
Yeah, and you're You're hitting it like perfect with segues. Like
That's right.
no, very nice.
Oh.
But like when you talk about like the equipment, what are we talking for food?
So for food, we do have fresh options. So like we can get you steak, chicken, hot dogs, stuff like that. Fresh eggs for the first day or two. Don't go any longer than that because we don't want that stuff to go bad on you. And the way we prep that stuff is we freeze it completely solid. And then right away at 5 a.m. when I get to the outfitter, we go through and we put the frozen food into your pack. And then throughout the day, it thaws out.
Mm-hmm.
So, by evening when you're ready for dinner, you got steaks that are all thawed out for you and ready to cook.
I think that's just crazy because I'm really good at looking into things. I'm really poor at actually doing the things. But it's that whole, you guys have it all set up. Like you have it planned out. Like you just said, we'll have your menu scheduled in such a manner that the steaks will be thawed the night you're supposed to have them.
Yeah, and the other thing too is we also have menus that you get to choose from. So, when you book a trip with us and if you want complete outfitting and we're doing your food, we send you a menu and say, okay, well, here are the options. Check off what you want. Are you guys coffee drinkers? Would you rather have tea, both? We send you out with basically like Kool-Aid packets and stuff too.
Wow.
Is essentially what they are for your cold drinks and all that.
Yeah.
And then we also do send you out with dehydrated food as well.
And that's what I was gonna say for the people watching on YouTube. If you haven't looked into it, on the picture here, it's kind of hard to see, but I got a couple of things of Mountain House from Seth and I's antelope shrimp. And that's where the jet boil comes in handy. And you don't need a jet boil. You can use a percolator over a fire or anything to boil water. And you just add, a little bit of water in these bags. And this one's chicken and dumpling, and they're all really, really good. And that's something that I think everyone should look into, depending on like your food allergies and things like that.
Yep, and if you let us know about food allergies or any type of food restrictions, like if you're a vegetarian, if you're gluten free, we work around that too.
Oh,
and we can customize that menu specifically for you or your entire group if they all want to eat that way.
Yeah, and that's super cool that you guys do that. Like that's you guys do like you're like a well-oiled machine up at that Voyageur North Outfitter.
Well, I just think for the first person coming up there, you talk about bringing kids up. It's enough for me just to get them out the door some days, and my wife and I, we'll take our kids camping. We do pop-up tent camping, tent camping, pop-up camping, excuse me. And that's a process, planning out the menus. Like it does create stress prior to the trip. Being able to have that option for a super unique experience going to the Boundary Waters, when they're young, trying to set that seed to get them hooked on the outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
And for me as the parent, I'm not stressed about the other stuff. Like,
yeah,
you guys, this is what I want. Give me some close to chicken nuggets. It's close to, if it's whatever it is, close to chicken nuggets and mac and cheese, whatever you can make, and know that you guys will, like, that's a possibility to just remove that stress is, I think, huge for people to get up there and get out there.
Yeah, but the other thing too about bringing kids up, we don't have set amount of days that you have to be out for. If you want to go out for just an overnight trip, we can do that. We can do day trips. And I mean, we got one guy that goes out for, 60 days.
Wow.
So, I mean, we can accommodate any length of trip you want to do.
Wow.
Pretty cool. That's really sweet. And another thing that I want to cover was, like I mentioned it before, with people collecting water. Because with the Boundary Waters, you can't bring glass, you can't bring cans, and you don't want to go buy a 24-pack of Ice Mountain bottles to haul, if you're portaging and to lug around with you. And then you're leaving, then you got to carry all them bottles out.
Yep.
So what are some good options? Because you have to clean your water. You're pretty much drinking the lake water, but you purify it.
Yep. So
you
there's
purify yourselves in the water. Lake
A little baptism.
of whatever. I'm trying to do a fun.
yeah, so there's a number of different water purification methods. My favorite is definitely a gravity feed filter. which for people that don't know what that is, basically it's two different bags with a filter in between them. So you fill up the top bag full of the lake water, you hang that up in a tree, you put the filter on it, and then you got the bag underneath, and gravity does all the work. That's by far the best one.
And is that like the Sawyer? Like
yes,
that it's a hose and
yep. Sawyer makes them. I know we use Platypus is the brand, and those work really nice. And we do rent those out and stuff as well. Then there's your pump filters, which the only downside of those is you got to sit there and pump as much water as you want. Mm-hmm. So you build up a sweat just pumping the water, and then you drink it all.
And Scott had one. I can't think of the name of the brand. It was Swiss something. And that's what we did. We had the Nalgene bottles.
Yeah.
So we just go down to the lake and you just fill up your bottle and then that was it. And he put an extra like little filter. Like I think he put a coffee filter on them. Zip tied it for just a little extra filter.
Yeah.
Just to get some of the bigger crap out of there. And oh man, that water tastes so freaking good when you're up there. Like if you want to talk about fresh water, like you said.
Natural gas.
Oh, it's almost as good as.
And then I will also say when you are getting your water to purify, always try to get it out of the middle of the lake. It's going to keep your filter a lot cleaner, just because then you're not getting any of the junk that's around shore, whether that's rocks in it or any type of debris that would be in by shore. So if you're out in the middle of the lake, you don't got to worry about scooping up a little bit of sand or gravel or grit or anything, and that'll keep your filter from clogging.
Yeah. What's is it beaver fever or something?
Oh yeah, Giardia.
Yeah, and you can get that in the warmer months.
Yep.
Like, and that's with the animals peeing in the water.
Yeah, that is from beaver poop.
Yeah,
beaver poop.
But like, it's all those options it's super cool. Like it's.
Fun fact about Giardia, it takes 2 weeks to set in.
Oh, did you get it?
No.
I know I just got here, but good lord, what a topic of conversation to walk into.
Giardia?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to tell anybody it is safe to drink out of the lakes. I will say that is normally what I do, but I cannot tell you guys that it's safe to drink out of the lakes.
Have you had, so when you're planning for people, have you had people say that they don't want to drink the lake water? You had to
we've had people say that, and we pretty much tell them, no, you're drinking the lake water. Like, I mean, if you want to go out and buy a case of water, which I have seen people do, and to me that makes zero sense, because I mean that's a lot of weight to lug around with you for one, and that takes up a lot of space.
It's dedication.
And I mean, I mean, if you drink all that water, you're stuck drinking the lake water at that point anyway.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, I've seen people just bring ridiculous things in, like a keg. I saw a group bring a keg of beer in with them. Because you cannot bring glass or bottles, but kegs are allowed.
How do they keep it cold?
None of us are that dedicated.
No.
I know. I'm pretty sure it was warm.
She definitely warm.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Warm and bad by the second day.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
I can't imagine portaging that keg was very fun.
Oh, that'd be heavy. Well, is there anything else that you guys, do you have any more questions about anything you want to cover? Or Barry, is there anything else you want to say about the Boundary Waters?
The Boundary Waters is a great place. It's a great area to go check out. Even if you're not too sure about it, go up and do a day trip. There's plenty of stuff to do in Ely if you don't enjoy the Boundary Waters. We got the Bear Center, the Wolf Center, the Dorothy Moulter Museum. So there's plenty of other stuff to do up there as well, besides just going out in the Boundary Waters.
I'm gonna ask, where can people find you out and about?
If I am not out in the woods or on the lake, I'm either at work or I am at the pool hall.
In Ely?
Yeah, I hang out at the pool hall most nights.
Right on.
Just look for the guy that looks like a mountain man.
Just go in and ask for Barry. They know who you're talking about. You can go into almost any bar and ask, and there's gonna know me.
But here's the fun part, though. Did we ever go into the fact that that's not his real name? Ever?
No, we don't need to get into that.
Okay, we won't.
I didn't know that till like
Can I
this
know the
summer.
person?
What?
I know the person who goes by the name of Barry.
Yeah.
Where's this Barry you speak of?
I've known you for what?
If you say my real name up in Ely, no one's gonna know who you're talking
that's what's
about.
hilarious. But I mean, how long me and you been hanging around?
Most of our
I
lives.
was gonna say since we were, I mean, playing like PE football. I mean, our dads were standing on the sidelines yelling at us to get it in gear. But I mean, I know your real name, and I'm gonna leave the mystery to that. But that's the best part is that nobody knows up there. You know, nobody knows you other than Barry.
It's mysterious. That's
Yeah.
that's the call of the boundary waters.
There's gonna be a book written by Barry someday.
It will be called Barry.
Someday I will attempt to write a book, and it won't get published because I have terrible grammar.
They're gonna have to teach him to write.
Well, Monticello schools definitely did not. So I had to learn it on my own in college, and I took comp like 3 different times before I passed. So
Well, to end the podcast real quick, here was Voyageur North Outfitters. How do people get a hold of Voyageur North Outfitters? You guys have a website, Facebook?
yep. So we have a website, and I don't go on the website too often, so I'm not sure what it's like. But most, just call and make a reservation. Just look us up on Google or whatever. You'll see plenty of our reviews, and just give us a call. There's a decent chance I'll be answering the phone, and definitely tell them that you heard about us at Border Outdoors.
Yeah. If anyone goes up there, and you call in and ask for Barry, if he's not there, just reference that you guys made it up there from, or you heard about him from Border. But with that being said, I got a couple I want to say. Barry, thanks for coming. Ron, AJ, thanks for coming. For everyone listening, check out the YouTube page. We're doing a video tonight. Hopefully everything works out. We're kind of trying to still figure out the whole video thing along with trying to figure out the podcast stuff.
Gotta hit record.
Yeah.
Oh shoot!
I didn't plan on being on camera today. I didn't know this was a thing.
I didn't either. I might have showered beforehand.
The waters of the lake in the Mississippi River.
I mean, I have
Let's
showered
not
in
go there.
I have bathed in that river a lot. That's where I would normally go after rugby practice in high school.
Oh,
Teams have an ice bath. I would just go sit in the river in March.
It's not even cold. It's like 60 degrees.
Not in March.
I thought it was still, well, it's above freezing.
It's just barely above freezing. I can tell you that much.
But also go check out the Border Outdoors store. You can go to www.borderoutdoors.com, hit the Border store link, go check out a t-shirt and all that stuff. We get a little bit of the proceeds, so it helps, keep the podcast going. I actually bought a shirt and a sweatshirt, and I bought the premium sweatshirt or t-shirt.
Nice and soft.
Yeah, it is super soft, lightweight. It's really comfortable.
I also bought one, but mine has not showed up yet.
Yeah, it takes about what is it? I'd say it takes like 10 days to get it.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have to have someone from South Dakota mail it back up to me.
For Barry, he's waiting on it still.
But I got the lightweight sweatshirt. Lightweight sweatshirt is really comfortable.
Does it feel too heavy?
No. And I just got a couple things. I plan on ordering a couple more this week. Otherwise, other than that, I've leave us a review on like Apple and then all that. That helps get our name out there to other people. Puts us higher up on the podcast world. And other than that, I don't really have too much more to say. All with Border Outdoors. I'm Mac.
I'm AJ.
I'm Barry.
Ron.
We'll talk to you guys later. No, here's the fucking. I'm almost certain
None of it recorded.
that none of it recorded.
Serious?
Thanks for listening to the Border Outdoors podcast. Follow us on Instagram. Be sure to join, follow, and share the Border Outdoors Facebook community page. Please leave us a 5-star rating on Apple, Spotify, or your preferred podcast hosting site. Be sure to tune in next week to see what the guys are talking about.
Border Outdoors, here we come. Border Outdoors, here we come. Hunting and fishing, we come.